Hola, otra vez. Welcome to Lightspeed Spanish, and this is video número 5 in the series of the subjunctive. Okay, una camisa diferente hoy, no? Different shirt on today. Now, the next group of triggers for the subjunctive that I'd like to talk about is the future. Okay, talking about future things. Now, to start with, I'm going to start with the one of the most important distinctions, and it's the word cuando. Okay, cuando, and then I'll come to another one which you can use. But basically, I used to be really confused about when I would use subjunctive with cuando and when I wouldn't, and I didn't understand. I was kind of confused. I would say, "Oh, my, when I go to Spain, do I have to use the subjunctive or not?" It's very clear when with the word cuando, when you use subjunctive and when you don't. When you were talking about habitual actions, things that you normally do, okay? No subjunctive. Not at all. Now, so I suppose in the sentence, when you use the word when, okay, if you are able to put into that sentence normally, then you don't use a subjunctive. But when you're using when and you're talking about a future event, something that's coming up, that's when you must use the subjunctive. Let me give you two examples. One is, when we go to Spain, we eat in the restaurant next to the house. Okay? So when we go to Spain, we eat in the restaurant next to the house. Now that sentence, does that need subjunctive or not? The question is, can you put the word normally in it? So normally when we go to Spain, we eat in the restaurant next to the house. So normally fits in, it's fine. It isn't a subjunctive sentence. So that when isn't a trigger. Okay? However, if I say this sentence, when we go to Spain, we are going to eat in the restaurant next to the house. Now try and fit normally into that. Normally when we go to Spain, we are going to eat. It doesn't work. That one's the trigger. That one needs subjunctive. Why? Because you're talking about a future up and coming event. Okay? So, for example, let's do the two sentences. Okay? The first sentence is this. Cuando vamos a España, comemos en el restaurante que está al lado de la casa. Okay? So, cuando vamos a España, comemos en el restaurante que está al lado de la casa. When we go to Spain, we eat in the restaurant that's next to the house. But the next one, when we go to Spain, we will, or we're going to, eat in the restaurant next to the house. That one is cuando vayamos a España. Vamos a comer en el restaurante que está al lado de la casa. Cuando vayamos o cuando nos vayamos. So now I've used a different, something that we haven't talked about. I've used the verb to go, okay, and this one is slightly irregular. This one doesn't follow the normal pattern, which is copy the yo form and flip it over, okay? Ir is a little bit, it's irregular in all of the tenses, really. So what happens is this. Voy, okay, in ir, in the subjunctive is vaya. V-A-Y-A. So it goes like this. Vaya, vayas, vaya. Vayamos, vayáis, vayan. Okay? So, talking about a future event, cuando nos vayamos a España, future event, subjunctive. Okay? Now, what I discovered was that there are two ways of talking about when in the future. in Spanish. You can say cuando, or you can say en cuanto. En cuanto. Now, what I decided to do so that I didn't get confused with having to use the indicative when you talk about normally, habitual things, I used en cuanto whenever I talked about a future event. And what that did for me was that kept them separate, so I didn't get confused. So I knew that when I used en cuanto, talking about en cuanto is kind of when, as soon as, then I knew that I had to use the subjunctive. So that's what I did. So I would say, for example, once we are in Spain, we're going to sunbathe. Okay, so I would say en cuanto we are in Spain. So en cuanto is your trigger for your subjunctive. En cuanto estemos en España. Okay. En cuanto estemos en España, tomaremos el sol. We will sunbathe. Yeah. So en cuanto estemos en España. Equally, that sentence works perfectly well with cuando. Cuando estemos en España, tomaremos el sol. Todos los días. So it doesn't matter whether you use cuando or en cuanto. Because you're talking about a future event, you must use the subjunctive. Okay? Now listen to the difference. Cuando estamos en España, tomamos el sol mucho. Indicative. Talking about normally. Because in that sentence I could say, normalmente cuando estamos en España, tomamos el sol todos los días. But if I want to talk about the up and coming holidays when we are going to be in Spain, en cuanto estemos en España, tomaremos el sol todos los días. O vamos a tomar el sol todos los días. Okay? So, two types of when. When normally, habitual action. When the future. So that always is subjunctive. Now, there's a lot of different expressions talking about future events. And what I've done is I've kind of clubbed them together into what I would call future events. Okay? So I'll give you another one. This is a nice one. Tan pronto como. Tan pronto como. Okay? Now that one is a literal translation, as soon as. Now this one to me is very similar to en cuanto. Okay? For example, as soon as they arrive, we'll go. Alright? Now, you've got a choice. You can say tan pronto como lleguen, iremos. Tan pronto como lleguen, iremos. Okay? O en cuanto lleguen, iremos. O cuando lleguen, iremos. Doesn't matter, they're all the same, aren't they? As soon as they arrive, once they arrive, when they arrive. Every one of those is subjunctive. Can you see the pattern? Talking about a when in the future. Now, again, which one do you want? Which one do you want to use? You can use them all if you want, or just choose one to talk about a when in the future. As I used en cuanto. En cuanto. Okay? But if you want to use cuando, you use cuando as long as you can remember to distinguish between a future event and just a normal thing that's happening. What about this? How would you say when we have the money, we'll go to Spain? When we have the money, we'll go to Spain. How would you do that? Now you can say when, once, and as soon as. Okay? So how would that be? Cuando tengamos el dinero, iremos a España. O, using en cuanto tengamos el dinero, iremos a España. or as soon as. Tan pronto como tengamos el dinero, iremos a España. So they're all the same. Future event, okay, with a when, subjunctive. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to continue with some more future. But these are the key ones, the whens, okay? So you choose one and make it your own. Pop it in your pocket. Y nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.